Waitress spilled scalding coffee on Baron Trump's face, unaware he owns the restaurant. The bustling kitchen of La Mirage was a symphony of sizzling pans, clanging dishes, and shouted orders. Amidst the chaos, Emily Carter darted between stations, her blonde ponytail bobbing as she worked to keep up with the relentless flow of tickets. It was just another Friday night at the high-end restaurant, known for its opulent decor, innovative cuisine, and elite clientele. Emily had been working at La Mirage for over a year now, but she still felt like an outsider among the polished staff and well-heeled patrons. As she navigated the labyrinth of tables, balancing trays laden with artfully arranged plates, Emily couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. The diners she served seemed to inhabit a different world, one of luxury and privilege, where money was no object and every whim was catered to. But for Emily, life was a constant struggle. She worked long hours for meager pay, barely making enough to cover her rent and bills. Her dreams of going to college and building a better future for herself seemed like a distant fantasy, forever out of reach. Lost in thought, Emily didn't notice the tall, quiet young man who had taken a seat in the corner booth. He was dressed casually, in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, his dark hair tucked under a baseball cap. Just another regular, she assumed, no different from the countless others she served every night. Grabbing a pot of hot coffee, Emily made her way over to the table, plastering on her best customer service smile. "Good evening, sir," she greeted him, her voice bright and cheery. "What can I get started for you tonight?" But as she leaned forward to pour the coffee, her elbow bumped the edge of the table, sending the pot flying from her grasp. Time seemed to slow down as the scalding liquid arced through the air, splattering across the young man's face and chest. For a moment, the restaurant fell silent. Emily froze, her heart pounding in her throat as she realized the gravity of her mistake. She braced herself for the inevitable outburst, the anger and humiliation that was sure to follow. But to her surprise, the young man remained calm. He reached for a napkin and began to dab at his face, his movements measured and controlled. "It's all right," he said softly, his voice barely audible above the din of the restaurant. "Accidents happen." Before Emily could even begin to process his reaction, a looming figure appeared at her side. It was Mr. Volkov, the restaurant manager, his face twisted into a mask of rage. "What have you done, you clumsy idiot?" he snarled, his accent thickening with anger. Emily flinched as if she'd been slapped. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice trembling. "It was an accident. I didn't mean to." But Mr. Volkov wasn't listening. "You're fired," he spat, his eyes blazing with fury. "Get out of my sight now. And don't expect a reference." Tears blurred Emily's vision as she turned to flee, her cheeks burning with shame. But before she could take a step, a quiet voice cut through the tension. "Wait." Emily turned back slowly, hardly daring to believe what she'd heard. The young man had risen from his seat, his posture straight and tall. He removed his cap, revealing a familiar face that sent a ripple of shock through the restaurant. It was Barron Trump, the eldest son of the former president and current owner of the La Mirage chain. Mr. Volkov's demeanor changed in an instant, his anger evaporating like mist in the sun. "Mr. Trump," he said, his voice dripping with obsequiousness, "I apologize for the disturbance. I assure you, the situation will be dealt with immediately." But Barron held up a hand, silencing him with a gesture. "That won't be necessary," he said calmly. "In fact, I'd like to speak with Emily privately if you don't mind." Emily's heart raced as she followed Barron to a quiet corner of the restaurant, her mind spinning with confusion and apprehension. What could he possibly want with her? Was he going to berate her further, make an example of her in front of the entire staff? But when they were alone, Barron's expression softened. "I'm sorry for what happened back there," he said, his tone sincere. "No one deserves to be treated that way, especially not for an honest mistake." Emily blinked, taken aback by his kindness. Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't understand. Why are you being so nice to me?" Barron smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Because I know what it's like to be judged unfairly," he said. "To have people assume the worst about you based on nothing more than your name or your position." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "The truth is, I've been watching you for a while now, Emily. I've seen how hard you work, how much you care about your job and your customers. And I think you have the potential to be so much more than just a waitress." Emily's mouth fell open in shock. "What do you mean?" she asked, hardly daring to hope. "I mean that I'd like to offer you a chance," Barron said, his gaze steady and unwavering. "A chance to prove yourself, to build a better life. I want you to come work for me, Emily. Not as a waitress, but as my personal assistant." Emily stared at Barron in disbelief, her mind reeling with the implications of his offer. Personal assistant to one of the most powerful men in the country? It was a dream come true, a chance to escape the drudgery of her dead-end job and build a real future for herself. But even as excitement bloomed in her chest, doubt crept in like a cold shadow. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I'm just a waitress. I don't have any experience, any qualifications. Why would you choose me?" Barron's smile was gentle, almost fatherly. "Because I see something in you, Emily," he said. "A spark, a drive, a desire to be more than what the world expects of you. And I want to help you nurture that spark, to become the person you were meant to be." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, pressing it into her hand. "Think about it," he said. "Take some time to consider my offer. And if you decide you want to take a chance, give me a call. I'll be waiting." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Emily standing alone in the corner, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. She looked down at the card in her hand, running her fingers over the embossed lettering. Barron Trump, CEO, La Mirage Enterprises. It was a name that carried weight, a name that could open doors and change lives. And now, it was a name that was offering her a way out, a chance to build something better. Emily took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders with determination. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't going to let this opportunity slip through her fingers. The next morning, Emily stood outside the towering glass facade of La Mirage Enterprises, her heart hammering in her chest. She'd spent the night tossing and turning, weighing the pros and cons of Barron's offer until her head spun. But in the end, she knew she couldn't pass up this chance. Even if it meant leaving behind everything she knew, even if it meant stepping into a world she barely understood, she had to try. She owed it to herself, to the little girl who'd once dreamed of more than just scraping by. Taking a deep breath, Emily pushed through the revolving doors and stepped into the gleaming lobby. The space was vast and opulent, all marble floors and soaring ceilings, with a sleek reception desk manned by a pair of immaculately dressed women. Feeling suddenly self-conscious in her simple blouse and skirt, Emily approached the desk with trepidation. "Hi," she said, her voice sounding small and uncertain. "I'm here to see Barron Trump. I have an appointment." The receptionist gave her a once-over, her gaze cool and assessing. "Name?" she asked, her tone clipped and efficient. "Emily Carter," Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist typed something into her computer, then nodded. "Mr. Trump is expecting you," she said. "Take the elevator to the top floor. His office is at the end of the hall." Emily thanked her and made her way to the elevator, her stomach churning with nerves. As the doors slid closed and the car began to rise, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked pale and frightened, like a deer caught in the headlights. But there was something else there too, a glimmer of determination, a spark of hope. She was ready for this, she told herself. Ready to take a chance, to seize the opportunity that had been handed to her. And whatever happened next, she knew she would face it with courage and resilience. Barron's office was a study in understated elegance, with sleek modern furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Emily hovered nervously by the door, feeling out of place and unsure of herself. But Barron greeted her with a warm smile, rising from behind his desk to shake her hand. "Emily," he said, his voice rich and welcoming. "I'm so glad you decided to come. Please, have a seat." Emily perched on the edge of one of the leather chairs, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Thank you for the opportunity," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I still can't quite believe it's real." Barron leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I know it's a lot to take in," he said, But I meant what I said last night. I see something special in you, Emily. A potential that's just waiting to be unleashed. He slid a folder across the desk towards her. This is your contract, he said. It outlines your responsibilities, your compensation, and the terms of your employment. I want you to take some time to read it over, to make sure you understand everything. And if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask. Emily took the folder with trembling hands, her eyes widening as she scanned the pages. The salary alone was more than she'd ever dreamed of making, and the benefits package was beyond generous. But it was the job description that really caught her eye. Personal assistant to the CEO, responsible for managing his schedule, coordinating his travel, and handling his correspondence. It was a position of trust and responsibility, one that would require her to be at the top of her game every single day. Emily looked up at Barron, her eyes shining with gratitude and determination. I won't let you down, she said, her voice firm and resolute. I promise. Barron smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I know you won't, he said. Welcome to the team, Emily. The first few weeks at La Mirage Enterprises were a whirlwind of activity and learning. Emily threw herself into her new role with enthusiasm and dedication, determined to prove herself worthy of Barron's trust. She quickly learned the ins and outs of managing his schedule, juggling meetings and appointments with ease. She became an expert at navigating the corporate world, learning the unspoken rules and protocols that governed life at the top. But what struck her most was Barron himself. Despite his wealth and power, he remained humble and down to earth, treating everyone with kindness and respect. He had a way of making people feel valued and heard, of drawing out their best selves and inspiring them to greatness. Emily found herself drawn to him, not just as a mentor and boss, but as a friend. They spent long hours together, working side by side on projects and initiatives that would shape the future of the company. And as they worked, they talked about their hopes and dreams, their fears and doubts, about the challenges they'd faced and the obstacles they'd overcome. Emily found herself opening up to Barron in a way she never had with anyone else, sharing parts of herself she'd kept hidden for so long. It was during one of these conversations that Barron first brought up the idea of the La Mirage Foundation. I've been thinking, he said, his eyes distant and thoughtful, about how we can use our success to make a real difference in the world. To give back to the communities that have given us so much. Emily leaned forward, intrigued. What did you have in mind? She asked. Barron smiled, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. A foundation, he said. One that would focus on education, on giving young people from disadvantaged backgrounds the same opportunities that I had. The chance to learn, to grow, to become the best versions of themselves. Emily felt a surge of admiration and respect. Here was a man who had everything, who could have easily rested on his laurels and enjoyed his success. But instead, he was choosing to use his platform to make a difference, to create something that would outlast him. That sounds amazing, she said, her voice filled with conviction. And I want to help in any way I can. Barron reached out and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. I knew you would, he said. Together, we're going to change the world, Emily. One life at a time. Over the next few months, Emily and Barron poured their hearts and souls into bringing the La Mirage Foundation to life. They worked tirelessly, reaching out to educators and community leaders, developing programs and initiatives that would provide opportunities for those who needed them most. It was a daunting task, one that required them to navigate complex bureaucracies and overcome countless obstacles. But through it all, they remained united in their purpose, driven by a shared vision of a better future. As the foundation began to take shape, Emily found herself taking on more and more responsibility. She became the public face of the organization, speaking at events and conferences, sharing their message of hope and empowerment. At first, she was terrified of the spotlight, of the weight of expectation that came with representing something so important. But with Barron's guidance and support, she discovered a strength and confidence she never knew she possessed. She learned to use her voice, to speak from the heart and inspire others to action. And as she did, she began to see the impact they were having, the lives they were changing. There were moments of joy and celebration when they witnessed firsthand the difference they were making. Like the day they opened the first La Mirage Learning Center, a state-of-the-art facility that would provide free education and resources to underprivileged children. As Emily stood on the stage, looking out at the sea of smiling faces, she felt a swell of emotion rising in her throat. These were the moments that made it all worthwhile, the moments that reminded her of why they were doing this. But there were also moments of doubt and frustration, when the challenges seemed insurmountable and the obstacles too great to overcome. In those moments, Emily found herself turning to Barron, seeking his wisdom and guidance. And always, he was there for her, offering a listening ear and a comforting presence. He believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself, and that faith gave her the strength to keep going, to keep fighting for what they both knew was right. As the La Mirage Foundation continued to grow and thrive, Emily and Barron's relationship deepened and evolved. What had begun as a professional partnership had blossomed into something more, a bond forged through shared purpose and mutual respect. They spent long hours together, working side by side to build something that would outlast them both. And in those hours, they discovered a connection that went beyond the superficial, a meeting of minds and hearts that felt both inevitable and right. It was a slow dance, a gradual coming together that neither of them had planned or expected. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, they found themselves drawn to each other in ways they couldn't quite explain. There were stolen glances and lingering touches, moments of electricity that crackled between them like a live wire. And there were quiet conversations, intimate and revealing, that peeled back the layers of their carefully constructed facades. Emily learned about Barron's childhood, about the weight of expectation that had been placed on his shoulders from a young age. She learned about his struggles and his triumphs, about the man behind the public persona. And in turn, she shared her own story, her own hopes and dreams and fears. She told him about the waitress who had once been too afraid to dream of a better life, about the woman she was becoming thanks to his belief in her. It was a dance of give and take, of push and pull. And with each step, they grew closer, more attuned to each other's rhythms and movements. But even as their personal relationship blossomed, they never lost sight of their shared mission. As the La Mirage Foundation continued to make strides, Emily and Barron's bond only grew stronger. Their shared passion for making a difference had brought them together, but it was their genuine care and respect for each other that made their connection truly special. Emily found herself looking forward to their time together, whether it was in meetings discussing new initiatives or during quiet moments of reflection. Barron's presence had become a constant source of comfort and inspiration, and she knew that she wouldn't be where she was today without his unwavering support. One evening, as they worked late into the night, Emily found herself opening up to Barron in a way she never had before. She told him about her childhood, about growing up in a single-parent household and the struggles her mother had faced to make ends meet. "She always told me that education was the key to a better life," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "But she never had the opportunity to pursue her own dreams. She sacrificed everything for me, and I want to make her proud." Barron listened intently, his eyes filled with understanding and compassion. "She is proud of you, Emily," he said softly. "I know she is. Look at everything you've accomplished, everything you've overcome. You're making a real difference in the world, and that's a testament to the strength and resilience you inherited from her." Emily felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. No one had ever spoken to her with such genuine kindness and empathy. In that moment, she realized just how much Barron had come to mean to her, not just as a mentor and friend, but as something more. As the months passed, Emily and Barron's relationship continued to evolve, growing deeper and more intimate with each passing day. They found themselves seeking each other out, not just for work-related matters, but for the simple pleasure of each other's company. They shared meals together, talking and laughing over plates of food that seemed to pale in comparison to the warmth and joy of their conversations. They took walks through the city, exploring new neighborhoods and discovering hidden gems that they'd never noticed before. And through it all they talked about their pasts and their futures, their hopes and their fears. They shared stories and secrets, building a level of trust and understanding that went beyond anything Emily had ever experienced before. She knew that what they had was special, a once-in-a-lifetime connection that couldn't be explained or quantified. And yet, there was a part of her that hesitated, that held back from fully embracing the depth of her feelings. She was still the girl from the wrong side of the tracks, the waitress who had stumbled into a world she barely understood. And Barron was still the billionaire CEO, the man who held the power to shape industries and change lives. Could they really bridge that gap? Could they build a future together, despite the differences that separated them? Emily didn't know the answers, but she knew that she was willing to try. Because when she was with Barron, everything else seemed to fade away. The doubts and the fears, the insecurities and the uncertainties. All that mattered was the two of them, and the love that had grown between them. As the La Mirage Foundation approached its first anniversary, Emily and Barron found themselves reflecting on how far they had come. What had started as a simple idea had blossomed into a thriving organization, one that was making a real difference in the lives of countless young people. They had opened learning centers in underserved communities across the country, providing access to education and resources that had once seemed out of reach. They had launched scholarship programs and mentorship initiatives, giving promising students the support and guidance they needed to succeed. And through it all, they had remained true to their mission, to their shared vision of a world where everyone had the opportunity to reach their full potential. But even as they celebrated their successes, they knew that there was still so much work to be done. The challenges they faced were complex and deeply rooted, the result of generations of inequality and injustice. They would need to be bold and innovative, willing to take risks and challenge the status quo. They would need to build coalitions and partnerships, to reach across lines of difference and find common ground. And they would need to rely on each other, to draw strength and inspiration from the bond they had forged through countless hours of hard work and dedication. As they stood together on the stage at the Foundation's anniversary gala, looking out at the sea of faces before them, Emily felt a surge of emotion rising in her chest. She reached for Barron's hand, intertwining her fingers with his as she stepped up to the microphone. "When I first started at La Mirage, I was just a waitress with a dream," she said, her voice strong and clear. "I never could have imagined that I would end up here, standing beside the man who believed in me when no one else did." She turned to Barron, her eyes shining with love and gratitude. "You saw something in me that I didn't see in myself," she said softly. "You gave me a chance to be more than I ever thought possible. And together, we've built something that will outlast us both." Barron smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he squeezed her hand. "We've only just begun," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "There's so much more we can do, so many more lives we can change. And I know that with you by my side, there's nothing we can't accomplish." In the weeks and months that followed, Emily and Barron threw themselves into their work with renewed energy and purpose. They expanded the Foundation's reach, partnering with organizations and institutions across the globe to bring their message of hope and empowerment to even more young people. They spoke at conferences and events, sharing their story and inspiring others to join their cause. They met with world leaders and influencers, advocating for policies and programs that would level the playing field and give everyone a fair shot at success. And through it all, their love for each other only grew stronger. They were a team, a partnership in every sense of the word. They supported each other through the challenges and celebrated each other's triumphs, always reminding themselves of the bigger picture and the mission that had brought them together. But even as they worked tirelessly to change the world, they never forgot the importance of the little things. The quiet moments of connection, the small gestures of kindness and compassion that made all the difference. They made time for each other, carving out space in their busy schedules for long walks and lazy Sunday mornings. They cooked meals together, experimenting with new recipes and savoring the simple pleasure of shared food and conversation. And they never stopped learning from each other, growing and evolving together as they navigated the twists and turns of life. Emily knew that she had found something rare and precious in Barron, a love that was built on a foundation of shared values and unwavering commitment. And she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand and heart to heart. As the years passed, the La Mirage Foundation continued to thrive and grow, touching the lives of millions of young people around the world. And at the heart of it all, Emily and Barron remained the driving force. The visionaries who had dared to dream of a better future and had worked tirelessly to make it a reality. They had faced their share of challenges and setbacks, weathering storms that would have broken lesser partnerships. But through it all, they had remained steadfast in their commitment to each other and to their shared mission. They had built a life together, one that was filled with purpose and meaning. They had started a family, welcoming 2 beautiful children into the world who brought them more joy than they ever could have imagined. And they had continued to inspire and empower others, using their platform and their resources to create opportunities and break down barriers. As they looked back on their journey together, Emily and Barron couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. From that fateful night at La Mirage, when a simple act of kindness had set them on a path they never could have predicted, to the global movement they had built together, one life at a time. They knew that there was still so much work to be done, so many more lives to touch and futures to shape. But they also knew that they had each other, and that together, they could face anything. And so, as they stood together on the stage at the La Mirage Foundation's 10th anniversary gala, Emily and Barron looked out at the sea of faces before them with a sense of pride and gratitude. They had built something extraordinary together, something that would outlast them both and continue to make a difference in the world long after they were gone. They had proven that true leadership wasn't about punishment or control, but about empathy and understanding. About seeing the potential in people and helping them to realize it, no matter where they came from or what obstacles they faced. And they had shown that love, in all its forms, was the most powerful force for change in the world. That by opening their hearts and sharing their lives, they could inspire others to do the same and create a ripple effect of kindness and compassion that would touch every corner of the globe. As they stood there, hand in hand, Emily felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over her. She knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with the man she loved by her side and the mission they shared guiding their every step. And she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. Because in the end, that was what true love was all about. Not the grand gestures or the fairy tale endings, but the quiet strength and unwavering commitment that sustained you through the ups and downs of life. And as Emily looked into Barron's eyes, she saw that same love reflected back at her, shining bright and true. They had started as strangers, brought together by a chance encounter and a shared sense of purpose. But now, they were so much more than that. They were partners in every sense of the word. And together, they would continue to change the world, one life at a time.